Greetings and welcome in everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And in case you missed it in the thumbnail or title of this video, that's right, today we're talking about my 10 desert island comic books. And in case it's not clear, essentially this prompt is meant to basically force me to pick 10 books that if I were stranded on a desert island, which comic books would I want to bring along with me? I got the idea to put this video together after my good friend Taylor over at Taylor Talks Comics did his own Desert Island comic book list. Thank you, Taylor, for the great idea. I definitely wanted to take my shot at preparing a video like this, and here we go. Now, before we jump into talking about today's selections, as always, I would also like to shout out the channel sponsor, Panel Bound Comics. If you want to pick up your own comic book collected editions, perhaps some of the books on this very video, as always, I encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video's description, and if you see anything site-wide that you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering, and thank you again to Taylor for this idea. Again, if you haven't subscribed to Taylor Talks Comics, definitely check him out. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. First up today, in no particular order, we're going to be talking Spider-Man Blue by Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale. Now, this is part of their Marvel Color series. They did this along with Daredevil Yellow, Hulk Gray, and Captain America White. But essentially, Spider-Man Blue is the story about Peter Parker, Spider-Man, remembering his lost love, Gwen Stacy, on, I think, the anniversary of her death, or Valentine's Day, perhaps. At any rate, this book takes us as he waxes nostalgic about his time with this woman who he lost at the hands of a great enemy. This is at a period too where he's married to Mary Jane Watson, a really close, beloved friend of Gwen Stacy, and the both of them kind of grieve together in their way. But what this does also is showcase the brightest and most fun aspects of kind of the silver and early bronze age of comics over at Marvel. I really love Tim Sale's just incredible attention to detail here. He seems to homage a lot from that period while having his own signature style. I think that this really encapsulates why Spider-Man works in many respects. You not only have Peter Parker doing his thing, but you have a rich cast of his supporting cast of characters, both allies and his nefarious villains, and it's just done perfectly. All of the issues kind of serve as an entry or kind of recorded journal log of this period, and by the end, you just really have this beautiful reflection on life, death, grief, and just more. I really love Spider-Man Blue. It was one of the first videos I reviewed on this channel, actually. I reviewed this very paperback, I think is my second comic book review. I'll try to link it, but definitely be gentle. It's definitely an older review, but I still love this story. I think about it so often, and if I were stranded on a desert island, this is one I'd like to have with me. I could reread it over and over again. It showcases one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, and I absolutely love these creators together. If you have yet to read it, I can't encourage it highly enough to check out Spider-Man Blue. Next up is another entry from these same creators. This is Superman for All Seasons by, you guessed it, Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale. Now, I am a big fan of Superman, and this is one of my favorite standalone works. It reads as a kind of Superman origin story, but also just a self-contained little miniseries here that really just shows me the character of Superman, or Clark Kent, and what's really in his heart, what makes him who he is, and I really love that. While this also has characters like Lex Luthor, the main villain isn't really a character as much as just circumstances in which Superman needs to overcome and save the day. It really does focus on the characterization more than anything, and being a longtime fan of Tim Sale's art, what he does here in Superman for All Seasons is something really unique. The color palettes he uses and the way he frames these shots, there's something so cinematic and inherently Americana about this work, and it's done in a way I can't really even articulate in, well, good enough detail, to be frank with you. But honestly, this is one I think about so often. It's one of my favorites, again, standalone Superman stories, and it just has a comfort read feel to it. I don't know how else to say that. When I think about a desert island reading list, I'm not thinking about just my favorite comics. I'm thinking about these kind of comfort reads. What are books that bring me a lot of comfort, feel like safe spaces that I can enjoy again and again, that feel enriching in some way? And for all these reasons and more, Superman for All Seasons really just fits the bill. There's a lot of great kind of moral messages here. You get to see, again, why I think this character has withstood the test of time, why he's someone that many people would have as a role model or can, to look up to. I really love seeing the interplay between him and his interpersonal relationships with his parents, with his girlfriend, even with his villains, and just with himself as he's growing up. It's kind of a coming of age story as well for a character who feels in so many ways larger than life. It's a book that has not been replicated, at least in my mind, and one I would easily have with me should the circumstances allow. Next on my list is admittedly a newer title. I'm going to be talking about Helen of Wyndhorn by Tom King and Bilquis Evley. This book was released by Dark Horse Comics, and honestly, I love it. This story is, how do I put this? It's kind of an homage to kind of pulpy sword and sorcery adventures, really paying tribute to things like Conan the Barbarian, and I really just was fascinated by it. It kind of has a Victorian sort of gothic feel as well. It basically follows Helen, the titular character, as she's basically picked up by her grandfather to live with him on his Wyndhorn estate. She's a kind of troublemaker, rebel-rouser sort of girl, and or young woman, I should say, who is kind of rudderless or aimless in her life. She's a substance-abusing alcoholic who's just at this crossroads, dealing with the grief of the passing of her father and trying to figure out what she's going to live for, what she's going to do. Well, what she finds on this ancestral estate of her grandfathers, who created a character similar to Conan the Barbarian, is basically a world of adventure. I don't want to spoil too much, but this is a fantasy fan's love letter, and having the art of Evley here, it's just absolutely engrossing, immersive, and first and foremost, gorgeous. We have Tom King's lyrical prose throughout as well. I'm a huge fan of Tom King's writing, and this is some of my favorite stuff. They were paired as well on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, one of my other personal favorite comic reads, and when I'm thinking about books I'd want to get lost in all over again on a deserted island perhaps, this book is easily in that top 10. I just could look at it as an art piece over and over again. The fact that the narrative is also really rich and engaging is just a cherry on top in my mind. This is an art book first and foremost, and I just would love to have it with me should I find myself stranded and in need of a good comic book read. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on Helen of Wyndhorn, definitely check out my full review. I'll try to link that if I remember as well. Did someone say Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow? That's right, of course, a desert island book for me is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bilquis Evley. This is the creative team that did the previous entry as well, Helen of Wyndhorn. I know in the past I have been accused of oversaturating my content with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and I'm sure this is not going to do me any favors in that regard. But yes, it is safely on my list. Like Helen of Wyndhorn that I just spoke about, this book is such a beautiful art piece. The art of Evley here is just transcendent in a way. It's surreal, it's dreamy, it's beautiful. And the work from Tom King is also so sharp and just gorgeous. It reads like poetry in some respects, and I just really enjoy it. This story basically is a revenge narrative, buddy, coming of age story. It's basically telling about a young woman who has lost her father at the hands of a devious space pirate murderer, and as she tries for revenge across the stars, she teams up with a kind of aimless Supergirl who herself is trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life. The two of them bounce around space from planet to planet trying to find this man who killed the other girl's father, and along the way they learn about themselves and they mature in their own way. Going from all of these alien worlds, we see Evley's talents on full display. This is a pure science fiction fantasy treat, and it's one I think about, well, clearly quite often. This is the deluxe edition, but it also had a paperback, and who knows, one day DC might upgrade this to an absolute edition. We'll just have to see, I suppose. Time will tell. But yeah, easily this would be on my desert island reading list because it is just beautiful. It's a comfort read for me, and it's one that I could revisit, I've said it already, but over and over and over again. Absolutely would be reading Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Next on my desert island reading list, I have to talk about House of X, Powers of 10 by Jonathan Hickman from Marvel Comics. This event book maxi series is one of my favorite modern X-Men reads, full stop. While I think it's a great place for newer X-Men readers to begin, as it really does tee up the status quo needed to enjoy the Krakoa era, Dawn of X era for the X-Men and other adjacent X-title books, it also just reads as a great standalone event. I do think it probably rewards longer-term fans of Marvel's Merry Mutants, as it draws on a lot of the history, but it's also packaged in a pretty accessible way. Now granted, this is Hickman, so we do get into very cerebral, dense science fiction hijinks, but again, I think it is a very palatable read that I would recommend to really any X-Men fan out there. The art throughout it is absolutely stunning as well, and the fact that this not only ushers in one of my favorite periods in X-Men history, but also just stands alone so well, I think for all these reasons, that's why this has to be on my Desert Island reading list. While some comfort reads I really just like for the art primarily, or because the storytelling is just, again, kind of a comfort, I think why I wanted to have this on my list is to lend a bit of variety to my Desert Island reading. Like I said, this is a bit more narratively dense and layered in some ways. It goes very hard into science fiction as well, and I thought that that would really kind of punch out my Desert Island reading list a bit more. It lends some variety, and honestly, I just really love Jonathan Hickman. I had to have him on the list somewhere, and I think that this would be a fantastic way to do that. Unlike his run on Avengers or Fantastic Four, where there's multiple volumes, I feel like I could pick this book up and enjoy it as a standalone, contained read, should I find myself on that deserted island. If you haven't read it yet, I should say as well that this book is slated to come back into print in an oversized hardcover format, I believe before the end of the year here in 2025. So if you haven't yet, definitely pre-order, try to get a copy. You can use the channel sponsor if you like, but yeah, good stuff. Okay, next up was actually the last addition I had to my list today, and I'm really happy I selected it. This is Howard the Duck by Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones. This is the omnibus edition that includes their entire run. It's not an overly large omnibus. I mean, it is oversized in respect to the trim size, but it's not a very long page-numbered book. Their run wasn't overly dense, but I really love this book. I'll admit that I actually just took a chance on this book. It was on a deep, deep discount. I had a huge sale on this book. I always thought Howard the Duck was a fascinating character I wanted to read more about, but when I jumped into it, I fell in love with not only this character, but also deeper in love with the writer Chip Zdarsky. I've loved his run on Daredevil and Spectacular Spider-Man and so much more, but this was a real career highlight for me as well. I really just admire the range Zdarsky is able to do across this run. We had moments that make you laugh, make you cry, make you just be at the edge of your seat, and all of it is just a tongue-in-cheek love letter to the Marvel Universe. The way he just lampoons some of the tropes within this universe and just pokes fun at some of the staple characters, like Spider-Man, for example, it's just a real joy, and it had me grinning from ear to ear. Is this accessible to new readers? Absolutely, but you will be enriched if you already like Howard the Duck, but particularly if you're just a general fan of the Marvel Universe. Again, the way he pokes fun at some of these staple characters is a real highlight. Howard the Duck's humor in general, I think, is really funny, and also you just really care. This is a very character grounded run, which might be surprising as it's such a humorous series, but really the characters are what make this series shine, and it's a book I come back to over and over again. This is a real hidden gem that I think a lot of Marvel fans haven't given a chance to read, and it's one I would really recommend. I would love to bring this on a Desert Island reading list because I would need that splash of humor, and I think that nothing fits the bill for me personally like Howard the Duck. And yes, I did do a Bill pun. He is a duck. Yay, everyone clap for me. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, assuming you're still watching after my awesome duck pun, let's go ahead and do the next item on my Desert Island reading list. This is Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, Omnibus Volume 1 from DC Comics. This is another newly released title. It came out not too long ago, and it really kind of collects the first half of one of the most celebrated, well-regarded runs in Nightwing's history. As to why I picked this for my Desert Island reading list, it's a couple reasons. Honestly, like some of the earlier entries, this is such an astoundingly beautiful art book. The art here from Bruno Redondo has just, in my mind, never been replicated. This is the first title I'm aware of that introduced me to the art style, but now it's become a definitive way I view this character and some of the DC mainstays that are showcased throughout this run. Now, I will say this single book is only the first half of the run, but I think within even this book, you get a lot of great arcs. You get a beginning, middle, and resolution by the end of this, and yes, there are some dangling plot threads that will be picked up on the back half of this run, but I think if I were just to have a singular book, I honestly think there's enough here to really be enjoyable. This is a great primer for newer fans of Nightwing, but it also rewards people that are more familiar with Dick Grayson's history. This run picks up in a time of grief for Dick Grayson. I won't really spoil too much, but he's at an interesting life crossroads, and he has resources he never expected, and we get to see what he does as he tries to reinvent himself and find his way in the world once again. We also have him pairing up with Barbara Gordon's Batgirl in many notable ways, which I enjoyed, and like I said, the art is just amazing. We have some experimentation with paneling layouts. There's even one issue that is just one continuous scene, where if you put all the pages next to each other, it has one left to right kind of flow of storytelling. I think that in itself is an artistic triumph, and that's just one small example of why I think this book is so incredible. A visual feast, and one that I would love should I be stranded on a desert island and I'm looking for a comfortable but engaging read. Don't miss out if you haven't read it yet. Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. Okay, next up on my desert island reading list, I would have to pick Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja. This is the Omnibus edition from Marvel Comics. I was able to get a copy of this not too long ago after wanting to upgrade from my paperback, and I'm really happy I did. This is a beautiful collection, a beautiful run, and one I have thought about a lot over the last couple years since I have read it. If you don't know, the premise of this Hawkeye series is basically we follow Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, who both kind of have the moniker of Hawkeye. The two of them have all sorts of fun misadventures, but essentially it's what does Hawkeye do when he's not saving the world with the Avengers? What are his kind of lesser misadventures? What does he do in his free time? Who is he as a person? And everything in between. This book has a really fascinating slice of life quality to it, while also going into those kind of light superheroics. It does have kind of street-based superhero vigilante kind of action, which I liked. It's intensely character grounded. I think the fact that we not only get a lot of narrative, not only from Clint Barton's Hawkeye, but Kate Bishop as the up-and-coming Hawkeye, I just love it. The interplay between those characters and the rest of the supporting cast of heroes and villains, and honestly even just neighbors in his community, it really enriched my reading experience. The art we get here, primarily from David Aja, is also just gorgeous. The panel layouts, there's a lot of fun experimentation as well, different than what we had in Bruno Redondo's Nightwing, but in that similar vein, they really play with the medium and the format and just expectations in general. This does have the entire run, and it's not an overlong run, but I think why I wanted this on my Desert Island reading list, it's not only a great written book, a great character-driven book, it's not only a great just artistic revelation, but it also, the fact that it leans into that slice of life quality, there's something beautifully mundane and engaging about it at several points, and I think that I would like that. That sense of kind of heightened normalcy, I think I would like in my reading list in some fashion. You know me though, I'm a huge superhero comic fan though, so I didn't want to go just straight indie with no fun misadventures, especially with costume superhero-like misadventures, but this is probably as close as I'm going to get here with Hawkeye, and yeah, it makes the list. Okay, next up is another Marvel Omnibus edition. We're going to be talking Captain America by Ed Brubaker Omnibus Volume 1. So admittedly, right at the jump, this is the first volume of a total 5-volume set that contains the Brubaker Captain America run. And you might be asking, Dominic, how could you only pick one volume for your Desert Island reading list? Well, the answer is twofold. One, I don't want to spare 5 entries for my Desert Island reading list for this run, and also this first volume is incredible. While it doesn't totally read standalone, I'm going to treat it as such because it includes some of my favorite story arcs from this period, including what begins it all, the Winter Soldier. One of my, if not my most favorite Captain America story I've ever had the pleasure of reading. It introduces, you guessed it, the Winter Soldier, but it also introduces us to Captain America's world at this time. We have beautiful artwork here from Steve Epting and more, and we just get this really interesting geopolitical layered kind of spy espionage action thriller. That's really the genre we're leaning to in this Brubaker run on Captain America, but like so many of the other great books listed here, this is intensely character grounded. It feels real, it feels gritty, it feels organic and nuanced, and I just adore it. It is a bit more exciting, kind of adrenaline pumping kind of a read, and I honestly don't have that overly represented here on my Desert Island comic list. So I think for those times that I don't want a kind of relax and chill comfort read on the Desert Island, when I want to be a little more engaged, I'm going to pick up something like this. I'm going to pick up something like House of X Powers of 10, things that really stimulate me a bit more, kind of lean heavier into the action, and yeah, I just adore this book. I can't speak highly enough about it. When I thought about the stranded on the desert island of it all, I think that this would be one I want to have with me. I feel like I could read through it over and over again and pick out different little subtle details every time that felt new and engaging. I know certainly whenever I've revisited these stories in the past, something new always shines out at me, and I remember why I love these stories all over again. Don't miss out on Captain America by Ed Brubaker. Okay, and rounding out our list today, we have Batman by Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale, the Omnibus edition. Now, this omnibus comes by way of DC Comics, and it includes Batman Haunted Night, Batman The Long Halloween, Batman Dark Victory, and Catwoman When in Rome. These books are a real treat that individually could stand alone as just incredible reads, but when collected together in a single volume like this is a no-brainer entry for my Desert Island reading list. Batman The Long Halloween has long been on my short list of best Batman stories of all time, and I can't have a Desert Island comic pile without having a great Batman story represented. And for me, it's The Long Halloween, and honestly, the rest of that are included in this omnibus. For those that don't know, The Long Halloween and its direct sequel, Dark Victory, are essentially big maxi series that can stand alone for the most part, other than being sequelized here, of course. It's set earlier in the crime fighter's career, and it's a large year kind of whodunit murder mystery. We have a character who is systematically murdering on each of the calendar holidays, and you have Batman and the Gotham Center Police Department and Harvey Dent trying to track down the killer. Because of this and the nature of the crimes, we have a showcasing of not only some of Batman's allies, but a lot of his rogues gallery of villains. We also have all of this in the beautiful stylization of Tim Sale, rest in peace, a terrific comic book artist, one of my favorites, and I just can't get enough of that story. The fact that we have a sequel to it that is another kind of detective whodunit crime mystery thriller that also serves as a backdoor origin for the Boy Wonder, Robin, is also just a real treat. You also in here have Haunted Night, which is kind of an anthology set of vignettes, one-shots that celebrate kind of Halloween in Gotham with Batman, and also Catwoman When in Rome, that's set within this same Long Halloween universe. I know that Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale are disproportionately represented on this list, but honestly, they're a huge comfort read for me, and I love so many of these narratives. Spider-Man Blue, Superman for All Seasons, and of course here, their work on Batman. Okay, and that's going to do it today for my 10 Desert Island comics list. Again, a huge thank you to Taylor over at Taylor Talks Comics for the great idea. He even invited me to partake in this, so again, a huge thank you to my friend over there. If you like indie comics in particular, and you have yet to subscribe to Taylor's channel, I highly encourage you to do it. Again, it's Taylor Talks Comics, great friend of the channel, great content, really thorough reviews, overviews, things like that. But yeah, this was a really fun list. I would love in the comments section, what do you think of my choices? Do you enjoy any of these titles? And more than that, if you'd like to participate, what are some of your favorite Desert Island comics? What would be on your short list of books where, should you be stranded on a desert island, which books would you want to take with you that are in the comic book medium? Thanks for playing. Let me know. I'd love to hear what your lists are and maybe why you chose them in the comments. And thanks everyone for making this journey with me today. This one was a lot of fun to put together. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, those comments we talked about, and maybe share it with a friend. Thanks everyone. Bye.